April 1986. Pripyat woke like any other morning. Children laughed on their way to school. Bakery lines stretched down the block, and the hum of the nearby power plant felt routine, almost comforting. People believed in the future here. A city built for scientists, engineers, families. No one knew that just a few kilometers away, deep inside Reactor 4, the clock had already started ticking, and when it reached zero, everything would change. Pripyat was no ordinary town. It was built for the future, powered by the atom. Founded in 1970 to serve Chernobyl's plant workers. A model Soviet city. Tidy streets, uniformed schools, engineers proud of their work. Nuclear energy here wasn't feared, it was celebrated. Progress, control, certainty. Inside Reactor 4, engineers reviewed procedure after procedure. A safety test was scheduled. Routine, necessary. But time was tight. Pressure from Moscow was clear. The test would go ahead, even if conditions weren't perfect, even if corners were quietly cut. At the heart of Pripyat stood an unfinished promise, an amusement park built for the May Day holiday. The Ferris wheel loomed quietly over the square. Children passed it daily, eyes wide with wonder. It was meant to open in just a few days, but the ribbon was never cut. No laughter, no music. The disaster struck before joy could arrive, and the park, untouched by life, became a symbol of death, frozen in time. Beneath steel and concrete, the core pulsed with silent energy. April 25th, 1 a.m., the test began. Simulate a power failure. See how long the turbines would spin. But the reactor was unstable. Power levels dropped too low, then forced back up. Warnings lit the panel like stars. The safety system was disabled, and the engineers followed orders. 1:23 a.m. Manual override. No time to question, no turning back. 1 hour, 23 minutes, and 40 seconds a.m. A sound no one had ever heard, and no one would forget. The core exploded. The 1,200-ton reactor lid launched into the air. Concrete shattered. Fire roared skyward. The roof gone. A second blast followed. Radiation surged into the night sky. The world changed in a blink. But most didn't know it yet. Within seconds, flames reached the roof. Molten debris littered the structure, burning hotter than anyone imagined. Firefighters arrived, unaware of what lay before them. No radiation suits. No warning. No hesitation. They climbed toward the blaze, and at their feet, chunks of graphite, glowing red, hissed in the wind. One touched it, then staggered back. The pain was instant, but the danger invisible. Still, they pressed on. Smoke billowed over Pripyat, but it carried more than ash. Radiation, colorless, odorless, deadly. Children pointed to the fire from their windows. Couples walked along the riverbank. The city went on, unaware. A wedding took place that day. A baby was born, and invisible particles filled their lungs. Inside government offices, phones rang. Reports came in, confused, conflicting, but action was slow. Moscow needed calm, and so, even as radiation climbed, officials hesitated. Denial was safer than panic. And for the people of Pripyat, that silence became their sentence. By the time they acted, it was too late. Evacuation was ordered 36 hours after the blast. Families packed bags in minutes. No one told them the truth. "You'll be gone for 3 days," they were told. Most never returned. The streets filled with buses, and a city full of life emptied in silence. Helicopters circled above the reactor. Crews dropped sand, lead, boron, anything to smother the core. But the radiation pierced their machines. Needles on Geiger counters maxed out. Warning lights blinked red. Pilots sweated behind glass. And still, they flew. They had no choice. Just beyond the reactor stood a lush pine woodland. Within hours, it turned brown, then red. The trees died where they stood, their needles scorched by radiation. Birds fell from the sky. The soil itself began to hum. This place would be called the Red Forest, a silent witness to the invisible fire. In lead-lined trucks, soldiers arrived. They were young, tired, and given no real protection. Some carried shovels, others dosimeters that barely worked. Their orders were clear: clean the zone. No questions, just duty. They were called liquidators, and many would never live to tell the story. Someone had to answer for the explosion, and the blame came quickly. Plant operators were arrested. Investigators pointed fingers before the ash had settled. But the truth was buried beneath politics, pride, and fear. What mattered wasn't justice, only silence. Pripyat became a ghost city, windows left open, clocks frozen at the time of departure, toys still sat in corners, plates half cleared on tables. Nature crept in, vines curled through cracks. The silence echoed louder than any siren. Radiation didn't stop at the Iron Curtain. Sweden, Finland, Germany, all detected it. The world asked questions. The Soviet Union stayed quiet. But science spoke louder than politics. Chernobyl couldn't be hidden anymore. The cloud had already circled the Earth. The reactor still burned, and cleanup had to begin immediately. Robots failed, their circuits fried by radiation, so men replaced them. Shovels in hand, they climbed the roof, worked in shifts, 90 seconds each, no more, or they'd die. They were called biorobots. And they fought, with no weapons but will. They couldn't put out the fire, they couldn't clean it all. So they buried it. Concrete, steel, more concrete, a shell to trap the core. They called it the sarcophagus, but it wasn't perfect. Radiation still escaped. The monster wasn't dead, only sleeping. Hospitals filled with the sick and the dying. Burns that didn't look like burns. Organs failing from the inside. Doctors were helpless. The textbooks had no pages for this. They treated, they hoped, they prayed. But the cost of loyalty was measured in bone marrow and silence. Pripyat was sealed, 30 kilometers of exile, Dogs barked at empty doors. Clocks ticked to no one. Shoes sat beside beds, waiting for feet that would never return. The city still stands, but it breathes only dust. The truth trickled out slowly. Years passed before the world knew the scale. Thousands sick, dozens dead, officially. But unofficially, the numbers still climb. Chernobyl wasn't just a meltdown. It was a mirror, and the world didn't like what it saw. They came by the thousands. Miners, soldiers, students, the liquidators. They scraped, shoveled, sealed, all to bury what could not be tamed. No monuments were promised, only time and pain. Many would vanish into medical charts, but their footprints remain. Chernobyl became a case study and a curse. Biologists found mutations. Physicists measured ghosts in the soil. Every tree, every insect held a secret. The reactor had ruptured nature itself, but still, life fought back. Even here, in the exclusion zone, the wild returned, with 3 eyes and steel in its roots. It was meant to open on May Day. Families had waited years for it. But the Ferris wheel never spun. Instead, it stood as a monument to abandonment. Rust crept along its joints. The red paint faded under ash. No laughter, only wind. The sarcophagus cracked and leaked, so they built another, an arc of steel the size of a stadium, to bury the past once more. Finished in 2016, the new safe confinement now hides Reactor 4. But behind its walls, the danger still breathes. Containment, not cure. Years later, explorers entered an old nursery. Dust coated every toy. But on the floor, a single red shoe. Unclaimed, untouched, unforgiven. Some tragedies don't scream. They whisper.